Of all the myriad stars in the cosmos, most shone with a predictable, orderly light, their systems adhering to the elegant, immutable laws of physics. It was this order that the Concordance sought to perfect. They were not one race, but two, unified in a singular cosmic purpose: to eliminate chaos and impose absolute harmony upon the universe. The first pillar of this ambition was the Sin. Their civilization was not forged from sterile metal and cold calculation, but woven from the thread of life itself. They were a living tapestry of perfectly engineered biology, psychic harmony, and a shared overarching genetic purpose. Their vessels were colossal, luminous leviathans of flesh and bone, pulsing with soft, internal, bioluminescent light as they glided through the void like celestial jellyfish. Every being within their collective, from the smallest nutrient processing phage to the grandest neural node that served as a ship's brain, existed in perfect, silent synchronicity. They were all guided by the psionic chorus, a gestalt consciousness that was the soul of their people. They sought not conquest, but synthesis, not destruction, but the gentle, inevitable integration of all life into their perfect biological song. The second pillar was the Kr'tharr. Where the Sin were life perfected, the Kr'tharr were logic incarnate. Their ships were the antithesis of the Sin's organic grace, sleek, obsidian forms of impossible geometry that flowed through space like liquid shadows, absorbing light and emitting only the cold hum of absolute efficiency. Each vessel was a complex lattice of cybernetic tissues and pulsed energy cores, extensions of the collective consciousness, a single, unified mind spanning light years. They were a civilization of pure data, of crystalline thought nodes and flawless algorithms. They sought to purge the universe of irrationality, to harvest inefficient systems and integrate all technology into their clean, logical framework. Together, they were the Concordance, and they had come to this fringe system on the edge of the Orion Arm, drawn by a faint, deeply unsettling hum on their long-range sensors. It was a dual signature anomaly, discordant psychic shriek of disorganized biology, overlaid with a chaotic crackle of primitive, noisy data streams. It was the signature of a species known as humans on the third planet. Designation, Sol-free, or Gaia, orbiting their star Sol. Aboard the Chorus Eternal, the primary Sin synthesis vessel, the designated Neural Flower Zero surveyed the target system through interwoven biological sensors. A blooming, living fractal of psychic potential, it felt the gentle resonance of agreement from the thousands of other Sin nodes across the fleet. Simultaneously, its consciousness was linked to its counterpart aboard the Kr'tharr flagship, the Integrator. Analysis of Gaia completed. Projected Neural Flower Zero's thought bloom, a complex pattern of telepathic frequencies across the shared network. Primary life form, designation human, is biologically inefficient. Biosignatures are dissonant, a cacophony of individual anxieties and conflicting intentions that pollute the local psychic space. From the cold, silent bridge of the Integrator, the crystalline mind node designated Admiral Kr'tharr added its own computational assessment, a stream of pure, precise data. Concurrence. Their technology is rudimentary, based on chaotic chemical reactions and uncontrolled energy bursts. They broadcast discordant data streams on primitive electromagnetic frequencies. Much of it appears to be irrational emotional noise, conflicting information exchanges, and what can only be classified as entertainment. A highly disorganized and illogical species. The joint leadership of the Concordance processed this information. It confirmed their initial assessment. These humans were a blight and affront to the two core tenets of universal order. Their chaotic biology was an insult to the Sin's harmony, and their illogical technology was an offense to the Kr'tharr's efficiency. They were ripe for rectification. Their useful genetic potential would be harvested and synthesized by the Sin. Their technological remnants would be analyzed and integrated by the Kr'tharr. Their consciousnesses, such as they were, would be pacified and absorbed as silent, harmonious subnodes into the great Chorus collective. It would be another easy, righteous expansion. Farther out in the system, nestled within a dense, swirling nebula cloud, a vastly different kind of ship drifted. The UNS Odyssey was a testament to human persistence. a patchwork vessel that wore its history on its hull. It had begun life as a deep space research and exploration ship, but budget cuts and shifting priorities and seen it refitted for long-range patrol duties. Its hull plating bore the marks of countless minor repairs, field modifications, and the scarred grafting of utilitarian armor onto its originally scientific frame. It wasn't elegant or beautiful. It was jury-rigged, functional, and stubborn. It was built with redundant, often incompatible systems, layers of experimental shielding slapped next to thick conventional armor, and modular labs that now sat awkwardly beside kinetic weapon emplacements. Inside, the bridge was a state of controlled clutter. Monitors hummed with mismatched software. Worn consoles stood beside newer, glossier ones, and the air carried the ever-present scent of ozone, recycled air, and forgotten coffee. Commander Aris Thorn, a man with kind, weary eyes and hands that were never quite clean from tinkering with the ship's guts, stared at the main view screen. It showed only the swirling purple and blue gases of the nebula, but a faint, unsettling thrum on the long-range sensors told a different story. "Anything new on those signals, Anya?" he asked, his voice calm but edged with a tension that permeated the bridge. Communications and Tactical Officer Anya Sharma, young, sharp, and intense, frowned at her console, her fingers flying across the interface. "Still getting them, Commander. It's a mess. High-frequency psionic pulses, but they're not clean. They're layered with complex computational resonance patterns. Our xenopsionics package keeps classifying the biological element as non-pattern noise, while the xenolinguistics AI tags the data component as mathematical gibberish. They don't seem to follow any known communication protocol or energy structure. It's like two different signals screaming over each other." At the science station, Chief Science Officer and Executive Officer Dr. Eva Rostova leaned forward, her fierce gaze locked on her own readouts. Rostova was a woman with an almost pathological need for data, and the current ambiguity was a physical irritant to her. "It's not just a signal, Eris. There are two distinct energy signatures attached. One is a cold, focused psionic energy, chillingly harmonious, invasive, and the other is a focused computational energy, clinically precise, deliberate. They're unlike anything we've ever longed, and the fact that they're perfectly synchronized is deeply disturbing." Thorn leaned back in his worn command chair, tapping a stylus against the armrest. Invasive and deliberate. The words felt like a physical touch, a cold finger tracing the Odyssey's hull. "How long until we can get a visual, Nav?" Navigator Petty Officer Jian Li, a man of quiet, meticulous precision, checked his trajectory projections. Based on their apparent vector and speed, approximately 5 hours to passive sensor range. Visual confirmation within 6. 5 hours. 6. Enough time to decide if they ran or stood their ground. The Odyssey was just one ship, a mongrel explorer frigate, not a warship. Running was the only logical option. But Thorn's gut, a famously unreliable but occasionally brilliant instrument, told him running might not be enough. Back on the Concordance flagships, the initial scout reports were collated. "Target vessel detected," projected Kr'tharr. "Classification, human hybrid vessel. Research and patrol Frigate. Energy signatures confirm rudimentary power source. Chemical reactions, primitive fission. Hull appears composed of inert metal alloys, a chaotic patchwork, lacking biointegration or proper energy channeling capabilities. Highly inefficient. Sensor profile is noisy, disorganized, and easy to track. Only one vessel detected in the outer system. Added neural flower 0. Minimal defensive capabilities observed near Gaia itself. Small orbital platforms, primitive kinetic weapons. Minimal threat." The Concordance's assessment solidified. The lone ship was an irrelevance. The plan remained unchanged. Standard procedure. Pacify the primary vessel as a precaution. Observe the planetary reaction, then initiate the full rectification protocols. It would be swift, a surgical, harmonious integration, a clean, logical harvest. The Concordance fleet shifted. It was a sight that would have shattered the sanity of any astronomer. Hundreds of luminous, biological holes of the Sin flowed into a loosely connected formation, like a swarm of phosphorescent plankton. Weaving between them, in perfect, calculated counterpatterns, were the hundreds of obsidian geometric vessels of the Kr'tharr. A silent, terrifying dance of life and logic. Subtle psionic frequencies and tight beam data streams pulsed between them, linking their consciousnesses, preparing for a coordinated, two-pronged assault. On the Odyssey, the universe turned to red light and screaming alarms. "Commander," shouted Sharma from her station, her voice strained with disbelief. "Multiple contacts, edge of sensor range, hundreds of them. They're not using standard FTL signatures. The bioships just appear, like biological blooms. The cybernetic ones, they just folded space. It's two fleets acting as one." Thorn was on his feet instantly, the calm in his voice, a dam holding back a flood of adrenaline. "Red alert, battle stations, all hands to battle stations." The bridge lights pulled in angry red. The ship hummed, not with harmonious life or cold logic, but with the raw, contained, slightly unstable power of a fusion core straining at its leash. From the engine room, Chief Engineer Marcus Brick Brody's voice came over the comms, a low growl that was somehow reassuring despite the chaos. "Fusion core is stable, Commander, diverting all available power to the experimental shielding and main propulsion. Science labs are reporting weapon systems hot and ready to argue." Thorn allowed a grim flicker of a smile. "Comms, send a hail. Standard first contact protocol. All languages, all frequencies. Tell them we are the United Nations Spaceship Odyssey, a vessel of peace, requesting identification and a declaration of intent." Sharma's fingers flew across her console, rerouting power and signal paths. "Hailing on all standard and experimental frequencies, Commander. Sending now." The message, a blast of raw electromagnetic noise containing crudely structured data packets and layered with a telepathic broadcast of calm, non-hostile intent, shot into the void. It was humanity's voice, a complex, messy, hopeful shout into the darkness. On the Concordance flagships, the human transmission was registered and dismissed in a nanosecond. Crude electromagnetic and psionic pulse detected. Projected neural flower 0. Contains simple data packets, basic linguistic structures, overlaid with incoherent biological signals of peace and curiosity, query, identification, and intent. "Inefficient," Kr'tharr's data stream replied. "They attempt communication when facing overwhelming, self-evident force. The logical response is surrender or paralysis. Communication is an unnecessary expenditure of energy." The Chorus Collective agreed. Communication was illogical and disharmonious. It wasn't a blast of energy, but a resonant frequency designed to disrupt synaptic connections, to scramble thought, to sever the link between mind and body, and to shut down complex biological processes. It was the Concordance's one-two punch, a perfect weapon designed to neutralize any civilization they had ever encountered. It had never failed. On the Odyssey, the universe ended. The EMP wave hit first. Lights exploded. Consoles died in showers of sparks. The main screen went black. Every advanced digital system on the ship flatlined. Alarms shrieked for a microsecond before their own circuits fried. Then the neural dissonance pulse washed over them. It was a physical blow made of thought. On the bridge, crew members collapsed, clutching their heads. Thoughts felt scrambled, alien. It was the psychic equivalent of 1,000 nails scraping down a blackboard inside your skull. Nausea, vertigo, and a profound sense of dislocation paralyzed them. "EMP strike, neural attack," Sharma screamed, her words slurring as she fought to stay conscious. All systems crashing. They're hitting our tech and our minds." "Engine room report," Thorn yelled into his comm, the words feeling thick and heavy in his mouth. Silence. "Brick." Still nothing. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at the edges of his calm. A modern human starship was a delicate fusion of digital systems and crew biomonitors, of neural interfaces and network computers, a combined EMP and psychic pulse designed by a hyper-evolved biological and cybernetic consciousness should have been a death sentence. But the UNS Odyssey was not a modern ship. It was a chaotic, redundant, gloriously inefficient mess. "Switch to analog overrides," Thorn roared, his voice cutting through the psychic noise that felt like a physical weight. "Auxiliary power to bridge essential systems. Navigation, bring up manual celestial navigation. Science, bypass the neural interfaces. Go to optical and thermal lock on all sensor platforms." Throughout the ship, a different kind of life flickered on. Emergency lights, powered by independent chemical batteries, cast long, dancing shadows. Crew members, fighting waves of psychic nausea and mental disorientation, shakily flipped heavy toggle switches, cranked manual override levers, and slammed thick physical cables into shielded ports. The Odyssey groaned, shivered, and protested like an old man forced into a sprint. But its disparate, messy, isolated systems held. On the bridge, an old-fashioned cathode ray tube monitor, kept on board by a nostalgic engineer, flickered to life, displaying grainy black and white camera feeds from the ship's exterior. "Forward experimental shielding is down, Commander," Sharma reported, her voice tight with strain but clear. "Aft patchwork armor and kinetic shielding holding. Hull integrity it's holding." Then a cheerful, crackling voice filled the emergency comms. "Bridge, this is engineering. You are not going to believe this. Their little light show took out every smart tech system we have, blew the main conduits, fried the primary computer core. But the old-school manual overrides because the reactor kicked in. The lead shielding around the core held. We're running on auxiliary chemical burners and battery reserves, but the basic systems are good. We are mean and ugly, but we are alive." Thorne felt a surge of grim, savage satisfaction. They hadn't died. They were hurt badly, but they were still here. Their chaotic, analog, redundant nature had saved them from an elegant, efficient digital and psychic death. The concordance registered the unexpected outcome. Disabling pulse effectiveness, 82% below projection. Kr'tharr's data string pulsed across the network, the logical equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Target vessel retains core functionality. Energy signatures indicate use of primitive analog systems and redundant, isolated power sources. Inefficient, yet resilient. Pacification pulse effectiveness, 85% below projection. Projected neural flower 0, a tremor of dissonance rippling through the chorus. Targeted vessel crew biosignatures indicate severe disorientation, but a surprising lack of systemic logical collapse. Their crude bioenergetic fields are causing localized feedback. Their biology is inconsistent, containing both complex integrated systems and simple, robust mechanical chemical processes. Difficult to predict. The combined consciousness analyzed the new data. Their standard pacification protocol, perfected over millennia, had failed. New assessment. Threat level elevated from minimal to moderate. Response, adapt. Deploy close-range swarms, commanded the joint leadership. Kr'tharr units. Integrate plasma cutters to sever target vessel hull integrity. SIN units. Integrate biological cutters and neuroprobes. Avoid critical biological and system components for harvesting. Dismantle them piece by piece. From the larger vessels, 2 distinct swarms detached. Hundreds of smaller, faster Kr'tharr units, shaped like metallic insects with wicked-looking plasma tools, sped towards the Odyssey. Alongside them, hundreds of smaller SIN units, like luminescent, predatory insects, swarmed forward, their forms shifting to deploy razor-sharp biological cutting tools and pulsating assimilation tendrils. It was a terrifying dual-pronged tide of living logic and deadly biology. On the Odyssey's grainy screens, the approaching swarms were a horrifying spectacle of light and shadow. "Commander, they're closing!" Sharma yelled. "Getting readings on localized energy and bioenergy fluctuations. Plasma cutters and something else. Biological cutters and neural probes. They're going to try and carve us up and scoop out the GUI center." Rostova's eyes gleamed with a fierce academic fire. The initial shock was over. Now there was only data to be gathered and problems to be solved. Engineering, they're coming in close. Eris, their attack vectors are distinct. The cybernetic units are targeting structural weaknesses, while the biological ones seem to be aimed at our life support and crude sections. They're trying to deconstruct us methodically. "Weapons," Thorne commanded, his voice steady. "They want methodical? Let's give them chaos. Dr. Rostova, your science labs are now weapons bays. Engage at will. Use whatever you can." "A pleasure, Commander." Rostova's voice was sharp over the comm. With the advanced digital targeting systems fried, the gunnery crews were relying on optical tracking, manual controls, and decades-old firing solutions programmed into the analog backups. "Gunners, target the metallic swarm. Fire the railguns," Rostova ordered. The ship's massive kinetic accelerators, salvaged from a decommissioned destroyer, roared to life with a bone-jarring shudder. They fired dense slugs of tungsten, guided only by the trained eyes and practiced hands of the crew. The rounds were invisible in space, but their impact was anything but. A Kr'tharr swarm unit, nimble and shielded against energy weapons, simply ceased to exist as a solid slug moving at a significant fraction of light speed tore through its core. Then another, and another. The swarm units were fast, agile, and intelligent, but their cybernetic forms were designed to resist energy weapons and digital attacks, not crude, solid projectiles of overwhelming kinetic force. Their adaptive armor, designed for energy dispersion, shattered like glass under the brute force impact. At the same time, Rostova continued, a wild grin on her face. Divert power to the sonic emitters. Target the biological swarm. Their adaptive bioarmor, which could heal from a plasma scorch in seconds, ruptured like a soap bubble under the extreme sonic pressure. The Concordance, for the first time in its long, orderly history, felt something akin to shock. Aboard the Chorus Eternal and the Integrator, the Central Command nodes felt the sudden, catastrophic loss of 43 Sin Swarm units and 37 Kr'tharr Swarm units. It wasn't pain in the biological sense, nor a critical error in the logical sense. It was a severe, jarring disruption in the coherence of the Chorus Collective. Casualties sustained, projected neural flower 0, the thought bloom laced with a deep, unsettling dissonance. Human vessel utilizing high-frequency kinetic energy emitters. Their sonic emitters use simple vibratory mechanics, unexpected. Our adaptive bioarmor is designed for biological energy dispersion, not raw sonic impact. Their effect is devastating. Confirmation, added Kr'tharr's data stream, the logic flickering with anomaly flags. Human vessel also utilizing high-velocity kinetic impactors. Their railguns use simple magnetic acceleration, brute force technology. Our adaptive armor is designed for energy weapons, not direct kinetic impact. Analysis of target vessel sensor profile did not indicate such disparate and primitive weapon systems. Tactical recommendation: retreat swarm units, the Joint Command concluded. A tremor of uncertainty spreading through the fleet. Reevaluate. The humans were not fighting according to logical, predictable principles. They were using technology that was simultaneously primitive and unexpectedly effective against the Concordance's specialized design philosophies. Their elegant psychic and digital attacks were countered by clunky analog backups. Their adaptive bioarmor was defeated by simple sound waves and metal slugs. It was illogical, biologically dissonant. On the Odyssey, a ragged cheer went up through the ship as the twin swarms pulled back, leaving a scattered field of shimmering organic debris and sparking metallic wreckage in their wake. Did we get them?" asked Lee, his voice filled with awe. "We hurt them," Thorne corrected, wiping a smear of grease from his forehead that he didn't remember getting. "Badly, but they're not done. Look." He pointed to the grainy view stream. The main alien fleet was shifting formation again. "They're adapting," Rostova said, her voice grin. "Their formation is tighter now. The cybernetic ships are forming an outer shell, like a physical shield, while the bioships are clustered inside. They're protecting their more vulnerable assets. They're surrounding the nebula cloud too," Sharma reported, cutting off any potential cover. "They're learning our chaotic patterns." Thorne nodded. They were learning. Time for another lesson in human inefficiency, or rather, unpredictable resilience. "Brick," he said over the comm. "How are those modular deep-core thermal vents and the old kinetic net launchers looking?" There was a pause, filled with the sound of clanging metal. "Ready to deploy, Commander. Took some creative rigging to bypass the fried digital interfaces, but the vents are good to go. Got the emergency coolant flares loaded. The net launchers, well, they're basically giant space shotguns. We can make them work." The Concordance fleet closed in, forming a massive, multi-layered sphere of pulsing biomass and cold black metal around the lone human vessel. From their command flagships, Neural Flower 0 and Admiral Kr'tharr observed the human ship. It was damaged, venting atmosphere in several places, its patchwork hull scorched and blackened. It seemed utterly vulnerable. "Integrate all available biological and computational processes," projected the Joint Command. "We will end this now. Kr'tharr units, prepare a massed energy projection to overwhelm their physical defenses. Sin units, prepare a massed psychic assimilation field to follow. This time, complete synthesis and disintegration." The hundreds of Kr'tharr ships began to glow with a cold, intense blue light, pulsing across their geometric forms. The Sin ships began to glow with an intense, pervasive golden light. Energy, both technological and biological, flowed between the ships, pooling and concentrating into a single, monstrous, dual-layered weapon. On the Odyssey, the air grew heavy, crackling with static and carrying a faint, sickly sweet scent. "Commander, psychic and energy readings are off the charts!" shouted Rostova. "They're linking up their entire fleet. It's like they're becoming one giant biopsychic techno-energy weapon. There's nothing in the database that comes close to this." "All hands brace for impact," Thorn ordered, his voice tight as a wire. "Brick, divert every last bit of power to what's left of the shielding and the structural integrity fields. Eva, prepare to vent everything you can. We're about to take the hit of a lifetime." The Concordance fleet fired. First came the energy, a beam of pure, focused azure energy, wide enough to engulf the Odyssey 10 times over, lanced across the void. It hit the human ship's depleted, flickering shields, which flared with the light of a small sun before collapsing into nothing. Then the beam slammed into the multi-layered patchwork hull. The Odyssey screamed. Major breaches and biological disruptions on decks 2, 4, and 6. Casualties reported in the labs and aft crew quarters. Thorn clung to his command chair, fighting the alien harmony that sought to soothe him into oblivion, to make him one with its beautiful, horrifying song. The dual field held for agonizing seconds, tearing into the ship's very fabric, both physical and biological. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The Concordance, designed for efficient, harmonious power cycles, could only sustain such a massive combined projection for a limited duration before risking catastrophic feedback loops, both logical and biological. The Odyssey drifted, a burning, broken, silent hulk. Aboard the flagships, the result was observed. "Cargo vessel integrity compromised," Kr'tharr's stream reported. "Estimated structural damage 75%. Disabling successful. I'm here to help with any questions or information you need. Let me know what you would like to discuss or focus on next." Most of the room's gone, but the core's stable, somehow. Running on borrowed time and spit, sir. Thorn felt a surge of fierce, irrational pride. They were alive. "Science, weapons, anything functional?" "Section D sonic emitter is active, Commander," Dr. Rostova yelled, her voice shaky but determined from her auxiliary station. "Manual aim only. We have maybe 15 charges left. And the port railgun. Alex Chen reports he has 20 rounds, manual load only." "Make them count," Thorn ordered. "Anya, target their command ships, the biggest bioship and the biggest cyber ship, right in the center of their formation. Alternate fire, all charges, all rounds, one after the other." "But Commander, they're closing," Sharma protested, fighting her own disorientation. "They'll be at boarding range in minutes." "That's the point," Thorn said, a wild, feverish look in his eyes that Rostova recognized as the breaking point between genius and insanity. "We're going to give them something their logic and harmony can't process. Jion Lee, give me everything the engines have left. Set a course, straight through the middle of their formation, maximum possible speed." Lee looked at him, then at the barely functional tactical display. "Sir, that's biologically and logically suicidal." "It's a disruption," Thorn retorted. "We hit their leaders, we cause chaos in their perfect little chorus collective, and we buy something. Time, maybe. A better death, definitely. Brick, if you have anything left in that godforsaken core, I want you to push it. We're going out loud." The UNS Odyssey, battered, broken, burning, and bleeding, its engines screaming in metallic protest, began to move. It didn't move with the fluid grace of the Sin or the cold precision of the Kr'tharr. It moved with a desperate, unpredictable, lumbering charge, like a wounded, cornered, and utterly furious animal. The Concordance registered the human vessel's movement. Target vessel is attempting an evasion vector. Kr'tharr's data stream noted, inefficient. Damage assessment indicates a low probability of successful evasion. Their trajectory is erratic, projected Neural Flower 0, not a typical evasion pattern. It is illogical. They are heading directly towards the Chorus Eternal and the Integrator. The Central Command nodes analyze the data. The human ship, a vessel of chaos, was heading directly for the twin hearts of the fleet, the primary nexuses of the Chorus and the Collective. Intercept course, projected the Joint Command, contain the target. Do not allow impact with the primary synthesis and integration vessels. The Concordance ships shifted, attempting to form a net to box in the charging human vessel. But the Odyssey, though slow and grievously wounded, was unpredictable. It weaved through the shimmering wreckage of the earlier swarm battle, its single operational railgun and sonic emitter firing relentlessly. Each railgun slug, a silent disruptor, punched through the hulls of the Kr'tharr ships, causing catastrophic system failures and localized noise in the collective. 20 rounds, 20 moments of fatal illogic among the closing ships. Each sonic burst pulsed through the delicate sin hulls, causing internal biological resonance, creating localized screams of dissonance in the chorus's perfect song. 15 bursts, 15 moments of agonizing discord. They are inflicting unacceptable biological disruption. I'm here to help with any further questions or requests you have. Just let me know what you need. Contingency 9 Beta was a high-priority withdrawal protocol, only to be used when facing an unpredictable, non-containable biological or psionic threat that could corrupt the chorus. Execute Contingency 7 Alpha. Kr'tharr's data stream flashed simultaneously. Contingency 7 Alpha was a high-priority withdrawal protocol, only to be used when facing an unpredictable, non-containable technological or logical threat that could corrupt a collective. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic for the Concordance. On the beach of the Aussie, the crew watched in stunned silence as the remaining enemy ships suddenly halted their charge. Then they began to pull back. Not with their earlier elegant coordinated maneuvers, but with a hurry, almost frantic withdrawal. The perfect formation shattered. "Commit! They're retreating," shouted Sharma, raw disbelief in her voice. "They're breaking formation. They're running." It's like a panicked organism. Thorn watched on the grainy screen as the luminous and obsidian shapes turned and sped away, activating their FTL drives in scattered, uncontrolled, inefficient bursts of bioenergy and distorted spacetime. They weren't regrouping. They were fleeing from the one thing they could not process, the one variable they could not solve for. A messy, chaotic, illogical, and defiant will to survive. "They're gone," said Rostova, her voice hollow with exhaustion as the psychic and static noise that had filled the ship receded into blessed silence. Thorn sank back into his command chair, the adrenaline draining away, leaving him feeling bruised to his very soul. "Yeah," he breathed, "they're gone." Lee looked around the shattered, sparking, debris-strewn bridge. We survived?" Thorn managed a weak, bloody smile. "We were too messy to integrate. We were too illogical to compute. That's our kind of win." Brick Brody's voice, weaker now than ever before, crackled over the comms. "Commander, the core is critical. Structural integrity is failing. We need recovery, and maybe a new engine room, and a stiff drink." "Understood, engineering," Thorn replied softly, sending out a distress signal. "Earth Command, they're not going to believe this. Or maybe, after today, they will." Sharma was already working the battered comms console. "Distress signal sent, Commander. I'm also picking up strange residual psionic and data signals from the retreating fleet. They're analyzing us, trying to create a file for biological chaos and technological irrationality." Thorn nodded, closing his eyes. Let them analyze. Let them try to build their perfect models and run their flawless simulations. They could study it for 1,000 years and never understand the illogical, resilient, messy, untamed, and deeply fundamentally chaotic nature of humanity. They came for synthesis and logic, for harmony and order. They found instead a dissonance that shattered their perfect, ordered minds. A few hours later, a fast response vessel from Earth Command, the UNS Vigilant, arrived. They found the UNS Odyssey dead in space, a mangled wreck of a ship surrounded by a vast, glittering graveyard of alien wreckage. Shimmering organic debris intermixed with the sharp black fragments of cybernetic craft. Admiral Sterling, a stern-faced veteran, boarded the crippled vessel. He walked in silence through the damaged corridors, past patched hull breaches, exhausted crew members fighting off the lingering effects of the psychic attack, and med teams treating the wounded. He reached the bridge and looked at Commander Thorn, who was sitting amidst the destruction, his face a mask of exhaustion and dried blood. "Commander," Sterling said, his voice flat, unable to fully conceal his awe. "Your report states that the UNS Odyssey, a single hybrid research patrol vessel, alone, engaged and repelled a unified fleet of approximately 1,700 unknown alien vessels." Thorn met his gaze, still feeling the phantom ache in his skull. "That is correct, sir. And that these vessels employed a combination of advanced bioengineered weapons, coordinated psychic assimilation tactics, high-energy beams, and cybernetic swarm tactics?" "Yes, sir." And that you lost 17 crew members, with 94 injured, Sterling's eyes were on the damage reports. Thorne's face hardened with pain. Yes, sir. We were lucky it wasn't more. Sterling was silent for a long moment, his gaze sweeping across the battered bridge, the weary, the defiant faces of the crew. He looked out the fractured viewport, at the impossible field of alien wreckage that stretched as far as the eye could see, pulsing faintly with residual light. 1,700 bioships and cyber constructs, he murmured, more to himself than to Thorne, repelled by one single broken ship. Thorne finally allowed himself a full, tired, aching smile. They were efficient, sir. Predictable, harmonious, and logical. We weren't. We were just human. Sterling looked at him again, a new light in his old eyes, a dawning, profound understanding. Get your crew and your ship back to Earth, Commander, and get some rest. All of you. You've just shown the galaxy something critically important about what it means to be alive. As the crippled Odyssey was carefully cradled in tractor beams for the long, slow tow back towards Sol, the story began to spread. The story of the ship that shouldn't have won, that fought with mismatched parts, clunky backups, and sheer chaotic will against an overwhelming, perfect dualistic force. The story of the Kr'tharr Concordance, vast and powerful, being utterly and completely bewildered by the messy, unpredictable, resilient, and deeply, fundamentally untamed nature of human life. They came for order and found instead a chaos that broke them.